Hey folks, Mike Rosado here, host of the Pencil Pushers podcast. Just a quick note before we jump into our next guest. Firstly, I wanted to thank all of our loyal listeners for checking us out each episode. It's kind of crazy to think about how many incredible guests we've had in such a short period of time. And the good news is we're just getting started and we've got a lot more in store that I'm really pumped about, so definitely keep your eyes out. I also wanted to take this time to invite you to follow me on Instagram at Ikimodasor. That's Ekimodasor. It's just my name spelled backwards. I'm about to start a new hot sauce actually called Bernie Wilds that's going to be jam-packed with hand-drawn work and illustrations, comics, and even some animation. We'll be launching a Kickstarter campaign coming up in October, and I'm so excited to share it with you and the world. If it's something you're interested in, I'd love to have you consider supporting us with a couple of bucks to help us put it all into production. Anyway, there'll be lots of really cool rewards that I think you'll dig. And in the meantime, stay tuned, stay safe, and that's it. Enjoy the show.
Recorded at the Kitchen Studios. This is the Pencil Pushers Podcast.
Welcome, Leadheads. This is the Pencil Pusher Podcast, and I'm your humble host, Mike Rosado. Today, we are back again with another banger for your ears. Yeah, folks, episode 26 brings us to one of my personally most anticipated interviews with animator Joey Caps. Joey's journey is power-packed with raising his talents on a multitude of animation projects that most of us have heard of, whether you're an animator or not, including Teen Titans Go, Steven Universe, Adventure Time, Scooby Doo, and finally his current hot gig, the all-new return-to-form Looney Tunes cartoons on HBO Max, serving the role of animation supervisor. Joey talks about making his way in a very competitive industry, surrounding himself with as many talented folks as possible, navigating the tough waters of hand-drawn animation at a time when a lot of folks thought it was dead, and how he landed the gig with Looney Tunes. Joey was about as nice a guy as you could hope for in a guest, but don't take my word for it. Grab yourself a nice cold one, sit back, relax, and enjoy our chat with Joey. Here we are with the Pencil Pushers podcast. We are back with another episode. I'm really excited to have our next guest. We have literally been in contact with each other for, I guess, probably over a year now, which is insane. I was going back into old emails and I was like, holy crap, man. I saw like a June 19th, 2019. It was insane.
Yeah, it's been a little while.
Yeah, definitely. So we are here with animator Joey Caps. Great to see you and great to talk with you for a little bit. And I'm glad we were able to make this happen. Welcome to the podcast, man.
Dude, thanks for having me, man. It's been a long time coming, but I've been looking forward to it. I've been enjoying all the previous ones. So, yeah, it's a long time coming.
For people who are not familiar with Joey's work, he has been an animator for several years now. We're going to get into a little bit of the backstory. He is currently the supervising animator for the new Looney Tunes cartoons on HBO Max, which, if you haven't seen these cartoons, man, if you're an animation fan or just a lover of classic animation, you have got to check this out. It's a phenomenal job they did. We are going to dive into that a little bit for sure. But cool. Joey, I think it'd be cool to kind of like see reverse engineer maybe a little bit, or rather starting from the beginning, like kind of get a scope of how you even got to where you are now, man. I mean, what was the bug that got you started with animation?
Well, for as long as I can remember, I always wanted to be an animator. I think I was that prototype 90s kid with the fat VHS tapes, and I would just sit there on my little table and try to draw the characters on the front of the Disney tapes, and it's just pretty much the only thing I ever wanted to do since I was little, and kind of stuck with it. It was crazy, like going
was
to
that
school
like a 12
and,
or 13 years old, or like a little bit older than that, or younger, or what?
Pretty young. I think like maybe like as soon as I could start drawing, like when I was 5 or 6 or something. That's pretty much had my mind made up back then, and it was kind of the only option I ever gave for myself. It was just like, nope, this is what we're gonna do, and I don't know how we're gonna do it, but just kind of stuck with it.
Yeah, where are you from? You're from the Northeast, or are you from Cali, or where are you from?
I'm originally from New York City. Well, New York City. I'm from a part of the city, the borough of Staten Island. But,
yeah. You're the first person I've ever met that's from Staten Island.
Well, I hope I make a better impression than most people do. But
I was actually born in Manhattan. I've been to all the boroughs. I was born in Manhattan and lived in Brooklyn for a little while, and spent I think I probably drove through Staten Island a little bit, but never spent
on your way out.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So,
I was born in Brooklyn, and my family is originally from Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, but we kind of made our way to Staten Island. But
did you have any family members that were artists too, or?
No. My dad is an ex-Navy guy, and he was big into drawing like schematics of ships and stuff. That was his hobby. He liked to draw, but it was more technical drawing. Yeah. And my mother was a nurse, so there was no, she's a very lovely lady, but there was no creativity coming from that side in terms of drawing. But yeah, it was just, I'm kind of like the first one in my family to kind of give it a shot. I had, I basically, I'm a product of so many different people, but like, there was one guy that I remember when I was really young. He was one of my baseball coaches. He worked in advertising in Manhattan. And later on in life, when I was trying to get into art school, he kind of helped guide me because really just didn't know anybody to kind of give me any direction with it.
Okay.
But, so
yes,
I'm the first one.
So if you started that early, I'm sure you were like really determined by the time you got into high school and stuff. How did you find where you needed to go in terms of, getting the right training? Because in the 90s, it was pretty hot. Like, you could probably find a good amount of, you had like Sheridan and Cal Arts, and you had like Ringling and stuff like that, and probably some spots in New York and stuff. But outside of that, how did you find, the spot that you needed in order to make sure you were able to make it as a career animator?
It was weird. Growing up, I had never been west of like Pennsylvania. I really didn't get to travel that much, so getting out to California was like, might as well have been trying to go to the moon. It was kind of just never in the cards. And luckily, I was in New York City, so I had a lot of those opportunities there. And the same guy who was helping me out when I was younger, he ended up going to the School of Visual Arts, and he was like, if you want to get into this animation thing, you may want to look at that. And I'm stubbornly lazy, especially when I was younger. I only applied to one school, and I applied to SVA, and I got in, which was great, because if I didn't, that would have been a whole different story. But I went to SVA, and that kind of just was, coming from Staten Island, where I'm from, it was like, I was, you're the best, draftsman in your school. And then you step out of that, small pond, and you jump in the big ocean that is SVA, and all these talents are coming in from all over the place. And it was like, oh wow, I need to up my game. But it was really good because I just met so many great friends and people that I've been working with till this day.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool, man. I went to SCAD.
Oh, okay,
I was that was such an eye opener. When you go, it's like you said. I was one of the better art students at my high school, but when I went to art college, it's like you get to see so much talent. And I know that SVA, in fact, I think SVA even like temporarily had like a satellite school in Savannah for a short period of time. I heard about something like that. But just to see so much talent, it was kind of intimidating in a lot of ways. Probably in some ways for you too.
Yeah,
right?
I remember specifically this phenomenal artist who unfortunately passed away. One of the first days in college, this one artist, he was unbelievable animator. His name was Paul Clark, and he was just phenomenal. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how animation worked, and I was hoping that college was going to explain this process to me. And the first day, this kid is already just going off, like animating on ones, this incredible scene he did, this really fluid animation. And I'm like, how the hell does he know all this stuff? And he was like, I participated in like a pre-college course or something. I'm like, man, like all of a sudden, I was like, how did he even know about that? Like, this is like way back before anything you can find out information online or whatever. And I was like, I'm in over my head. I have no idea what I'm doing. And there are people here. I went to school with one of my best friends. His name is Danny Hines. He's the lead character designer on a lot of Cartoon Network shows.
Oh, wow.
Craig of the Creek and Steven Universe, and then also I was in school with Ian Jones-Cordy, who created OKK Go and worked on Steven Universe. He's just a uber talent. He's a genius, and it's just like this talent pool. I'm like, what am I doing here? I just totally don't belong in this. It was crazy, but it was great. Just kind of just fake it till you make it, I guess. Trying to keep up.
Yeah, so clearly it helped to go to that school and and rub elbows with all these super talented people, and I'm sure like places like Nickelodeon and the Cartoon Network, they were probably just siphoning students out of there all the time. So it probably helped, but clearly your talent was a huge benefit for you getting in there. You would have never been able to get in there. It doesn't matter how close of friends you were with these folks. And we hadn't even talked about this yet, but you've run the gamut through all these like hit TV shows, as you said before, like Adventure Time, Steven Universe, OKKO, Teen Titans. How did you break into the business, man? I mean, this is so important for a lot of like the young listeners who are trying to get in there, man. I mean, speak to that a little bit.
For sure. My career kind of started in New York. I remember my first job offer, which was crazy. I was at my graduation and I got a call. Oh, geez, I can't remember the guy's the name of his studio, but there was a studio in New York that gave me a call. They were looking for artists to help out with a film that he was working on. It didn't pan out. Unfortunately, it turned out to be something else that I didn't end up doing. But I remember being at graduation like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I'm already getting calls. This is great. But that didn't pan out. But I remember right around going into my senior year, I hadn't done any interning or anything. And I think nowadays, in order to intern, it has to be for credit or something like that. I'm not too sure how colleges work nowadays. But when I was going to SVA, I wasn't required to intern, and it was more of like something that I kind of actively pursued. And I got an internship at this studio called Noodle Soup Productions, which later became World Leaders Entertainment. And I was working there on and off for probably maybe 5 to 10 years, somewhat, like in and out. Just, projects would come and then go.
Wow, that long?
Yeah, I would always be bouncing in and out. It was just such a great place, but they gave me a shot, and I worked really hard trying to just, get any opportunity there I could. And I remember there was this little tiny preschool project that came through the door, and one of the producers there, this guy Ben Stein, he gave me a shot, and he was just like, "Yeah, why don't you jump in on it?" And then a couple of us actually did, which was cool. A couple of us got a chance to start our careers there, and one project led to another, and just taking anything I could get.
Were you still was this like full-time stuff though? Like full-time for like a certain period of time as they needed you, or was it part-time?
I think it was part-time, because I during my senior year, I was supposed to be doing my thesis, which totally imploded. My thesis film was terrible, and I totally, I got those little job opportunities. They were kind of part-time, but in my mind, I was like, I'm already out the door. I'm kind of thinking about, I want to start working. And so it was mostly part-time. And then from that one little project, they did a show at MTV. I think we were the last animated show to work at MTV Studios before it completely shut down. But it was Fridays, the animated... It was
like early 2000s?
It must have been 2005, 2006 or something like that, right around when I graduated. And we did Fridays, the animated series. And my friend Kevin Lofton was running that, but even more so,
is Fridays the same thing as the
Ice Cube
skit show?
Ice Cube movie, yeah. It was like a
wow.
Yeah, it was like I forget how it worked out, and then they shelved it. They never really showed it or anything, but it was a fun show to work on, and it was kind of like an early introduction to Flash, and because I had never really worked with Flash before, and kind of just jumped in there, but. Another key person in my life, Kimson Albert, he's like my mentor. He kind of took me under his wing. I don't know what he saw in me, but he kind of just always been trying to guide me and show me how the business works and kind of just keep me going. He taught me how to do X sheets, and that was another thing. Like he he's always been looking out for younger guys and to keep us keep some of the the old school ways of doing stuff alive. Like not a lot of people know how to do X sheets nowadays, but he took it upon himself to teach us how to do it, which is great. And all these
X sheets are exposure sheets.
Yeah,
right?
sorry, yeah, exposure sheets are for when we're shipping animation overseas. I guess Hanna-Barbera kind of really set the tone for that. They established that workflow. But when you're not animating in-house, when you're animating overseas, you have to send exposure sheets to all the artists over there because they don't really understand. They might not understand the language or exactly what's going on in the scene. So the directors will, through the X sheets, explain what they want in the scene.
Yeah. Yeah. Not to get into the technical part of it, but is that different than the sheet that explains the timing and the dialogue and all that kind of stuff as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we would do. And that's what I did for the Venture Brothers and for OKKO and Steven Universe. All those shows still ship to studios overseas, and so they need sheet timers and animation directors to do all that stuff. So that was really interesting. Not a lot of people do it anymore now that Toon Boom is kind of changing the landscape of how shows work. It's not necessarily.
Were you learning about that at the time? So you were in college like right at the turn of the century. It sounds kind of funny to say,
I know,
but
right?
That's the truth. But you went to college like I guess around 2000, 2001, somewhere around there. Is that right?
2002 to 2006. Yeah.
2002. Yeah. Okay. And were they teaching you traditional at that point? Because Pixar, I mean, it was just total domination at that point, and I don't even think they had Toon Boom until later on,
Absolutely,
right? Like
yeah.
maybe late 2000s or something like that.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I remember being in school, and everyone was saying like, "Get out of what you're doing," because it was. I remember Disney came to our college. And they were showing off their films, Meet the Robinsons or something. It was like the earlier days, and Chicken Little and stuff like
Right.
They were showing off these 3D films, and they were like, 2D is dead. This is the future. You want to get out of 2D as fast as you can and start learning 3D. And it was a really confusing time because, I'm finally here. I'm following my dream. I'm at this school, and all I'm being told is this is a mistake, and you need to get out of this.
Yeah. Yep.
It's crazy. I mean, I'm so lucky. Like every day, it's just I'm so blessed that I get to do this. But it is wild to think that like through a pandemic, I never in a million years would I have thought that I'd still be employed. There's so many people out there suffering, but I'm actually still working, and it just takes me back to that day when everyone was like, "Get out of this! This is a dead medium. You want to move on to 3D," and it's like. You never know. Like you never know what the future holds. But
yeah, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? I mean, now what I've been hearing, and I'm sure you've probably heard the same thing, but the animation industry in some ways is booming because of the fact that the pandemic is. I mean, we don't know how long that's going to last, of course, but they say as a result of live action not being able to film, entertainment industry is almost like saying, okay, what can we get out of animation to fill the void?
Absolutely.
Are you feeling that as well, or?
Yeah, it's crazy. I heard somebody. I'm in Burbank, and I had heard somebody that I know lives next door to someone who works at Disney, who works in the 3D department. Well, not department. Everything's just 3D over there right now. But I think he was like a lighting TD or something. And he, unfortunately, just hadn't heard anything. He didn't know when they were getting back to into the studio. They didn't know anything. And apparently, we are the most productive department within the whole production studios right now. Just animation is just booming. It's who would have thought? But we're all still going. Luckily, most of us have at-home work setups, so we can just keep rolling and. There was a slight, learning curve when we first all jumped to working from home, but ever since we did it, we're rolling. Like we're doing pretty good. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So backtracking again just a little bit. So you're a few years younger than me. I left SCAD in '98.
Okay.
And my intention, I wanted to go into animation as well. And then, like, right at that time, that's when Pixar, basically destroyed the animation industry. Yeah. So I wound up taking a different path, but I still have such a passion for it. And I eventually want to still get back into it at some point.
Yeah,
but that's another story. It is interesting to hear your perspective, because you came in pretty much like a few years after me. And that is really when 2D pretty much got crushed. Yeah. Outside of maybe doing some very limited animation for TV, it was like mass exodus. Mm-hmm. You had all these top animators who were starting to get training in doing 3D animation, and some made it and some didn't, obviously. Yeah. I'm curious, as things progressed, I know a lot of people in the animation industry who were animators wound up going into story, mm-hmm. like doing more storyboard, conceptual design and stuff like that. Was that part of your journey as well, where you're like, well, at least I can, maybe start, because I know you've done a lot of storyboard work. Was that kind of your entry point, I guess? Like, how did you manage the scenario of not getting into 2D animation immediately?
It was my entry point, but into the Los Angeles kind of scene, or I guess that chapter of my life. But from 2006 to 2014, I was working in New York, just grabbing like any job I could get. I think I was trying to think of like all the different things that I've done. This has, I guess, good story points or whatever, but there was this company in New York called Digital Kitchen that I did a job for. And it was back when the Mac store was super popular, and like everybody wanted their store to look like the Mac store. And Microsoft was going to try to make a Microsoft store. I don't know if anybody even remembers this, but they wanted us to create all this mixed media art stuff, and they wanted some traditional animation, but it wasn't character stuff. It was like, animate this hand forming, effects stuff. And that's a lot of what I just did. I didn't get to do a lot of character animation for like probably the first 4 years. It was all just mixed media, motion graphics kind of stuff. And at that job, Digital Kitchen, they needed to get the job fast enough, get it done fast enough, that they leased the office space next door, which is an old restaurant, and they had us working in the kitchen of this old restaurant, trying to just desperately get all this animation. It was just chaos, like all the different places that I've worked, and all the different situations of having to chase down studios for checks because they don't want to pay you for like 4 months, and just constantly trying to stay employed. Yeah, New York was a battle for a while, but But then around 2011, Titmouse Animation opened up a studio in New York, and that was basically where my career kind of shifted from getting to just do mostly motion graphics to actually getting to do character animation. And that was huge, because we got to work on, the first thing I did for them was Super Jail Season 2, and then from there we did a show called Motor City. And then after Motor City, we did Turbo. That was on Netflix. That was the first show, the first project I ever worked on that went to Netflix, which was wild. And then
and that was hand drawn, right? That was hand drawn but it was like the hand drawn version of the. Exactly. I guess that was a DreamWorks project, wasn't it?
It was all a DreamWorks CG feature. And then they wanted to have the show be like a follow-up to the movie or something on Netflix. And it had kind of like almost like an anime kind of vibe, like almost like a Japanese style vibe to it. They Chris Pranowski was the creator and showrunner of the show Motor City that was on Disney XD. And after we did that, all the companies, they want that look. And so Turbo was basically that kind of like that, but snails. And it had that very kind of slick, anime feel to it. But it was a lot of fun. Just animating a show about snails. You got to get creative, I guess. keeping it interesting.
Yeah. So how did you? You started doing storyboarding, and then how did you get into actually getting your first kind of animation gig where you felt like, okay, now I'm really starting to get the kind of gigs that I've been dreaming of?
Yeah. So me and my buddies, we would do. My great friend Matt Lee back in New York, he decided to put together his own film festival. And he just had a bunch of us, hey, if you want to submit a film, this is when the film festival is. You can join it. The name of the film festival was Midsummer Night Tunes. And he would do it for, I think the pandemic is the only thing that's stopping him this year, but I think it's been going for at least 7 or 8 years now. And it was really cool.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was really cool. And a lot of us would submit films, and I met some good friends through there. And a friend, Gary Doodles, who I had known for a while, he had a show that he got picked up at Nickelodeon called Breadwinners. And at a certain point, I was working on Venture Brothers in New York, doing the sheet timing and the animation direction for that. And he gave me an opportunity to take a test to do a storyboard revision. Because it's like you said, working at a studio doing pipeline animation, there is kind of a ceiling, unless you're... I think I can always grow and get better at animation, but at a certain point, it was like, you may want to transition over to storyboarding if you want to start telling stories, or, the one job I've never done is character design. I'd love to do that one day, but I did sort of get the bug to want to get into storyboarding, and Gary gave me an opportunity to work on his show as a storyboard revisionist. That was my first job out in LA, and I passed the test. And
what's a storyboard revisionist? Is that somebody who says that's not exactly what happened, this is how it went down?
It's kind of like a cleanup artist. Well, not a cleanup artist, like a cleanup hitter or whatever. So the storyboard artist will go through and they'll do their first pass of everything. And then the directors will, edit the animatic together, cut out the things they don't like, see all the holes in it, like, oh, we need to add this, we need to add that. And then it's basically like a secondary department that's like, hey, we need to add this little bit here, and we need to take this out, and oh, can you clean up these drawings over here? Just kind of like yeah,
you're like plussing it, basically.
Exactly, yeah. That's and it's usually...
So you'd sit in the room, watch them do the pitch, you'd be a part of the feedback, or you'd be there to absorb the feedback, right. And then you'd work with that storyboard artist to cull all the information and then, kind of refine it from there.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, they would pretty much make those decisions without me there, but they would call me in to go, okay, so we already went over this episode, these are the things we like, these are the things we don't like, and they kind of just give you a kickoff meeting to show you what they're going for. And it's really good because I never storyboarded before in my life. I kind of really didn't have a clue how to do it. It's like one of the most intimidating jobs for me. It was thrilling, but it's also super intimidating. And but revisions was a great entry point for that. And from what I had heard, a lot of people, that's how they jump into storyboarding, is getting a revision job, because it's a great introduction without all that pressure of being the board artist on the show. It's a great way to learn.
Now, is being a storyboard artist for TV shows today the same as it was like decades ago, when you have, I always see these visions of, these, charismatic, guys just like, acting out all the scenes and, just really hamming it up. And, you got to be this real gregarious character to sell what's going on for each scene. Yeah. Is that still the case now, and even for TV shows in particular?
It can be. Sometimes not so much, or at least I didn't have too much exposure to things like that. But Pete Brownguard on the Looney Tunes cartoons very much wanted that to be a part of the process. So when a show would be getting ready to, be wrapping up the boards, he would have the entire crew come in, and the board artist would pitch the board to everybody, and they get a good temperature read of like, oh, are these jokes hitting? Is this working? And those board artists on that show are just insane. They were so good, and it was literally that experience that you think of when you're a kid and you see them all in this room pitching out their ideas. we don't put the panels up on a board anymore. It's just, stepping through it on a computer. But it was just still as thrilling, and just getting to see those guys act out their scenes and do their voices, and it was really great. But that's the first time I've experienced it, which was really cool.
Dude, I'll just like, we've got to roll into this, man. Like, how did you land this gig, man? Tell me all about how you got there. How'd you hear about it? What was your expectation? And walk us through that a little bit.
For sure. Yeah. So I was a storyboard artist on Teen Titans Go. I've been doing that for 2 years, I think, was my time there. And during that time, I got to work on, I think I started season 3, and I think I went all the way up to season 5.
You in Cali at this point?
Yeah. This was after Breadwinners at Nickelodeon. I got an opportunity to come over to Warner Brothers, and so I've been at Warner Brothers ever since. And so I got a chance to work on Teen Titans. Worked on that. The movie came along, and we actually got an opportunity to work on the movie, which was crazy. And so right around that point, once the movie wrapped, we were getting ready to start the next season of Teen Titans Go. And my buddy at work, me and him shared an office together. And he's one of the directors on Looney Tunes. His name is David Gemmell. One of the most talented dudes I've ever met in my entire life. He's insane. He's so funny, and his draftsmanship is just so on point. I needed to stay close to this guy, because this guy is like an uber talent, and he's a great friend. But I'm like, the caliber of people you're surrounded with, you can elevate you. And just being around him was just infectious. I needed to get better at drawing and, being more creative and storytelling and all that stuff. So and then along came Pete Brownguard, who I had met a couple of times before. We weren't as good friends back then, because I didn't get any exposure to him. I met him a couple of times, but I'd never worked with him before.
What was he coming out of?
I'm not sure. He was kind of, in the beginning, it was more like, oh, what's this guy doing here? Like, obviously there's a cool project happening, but no one knew what it was. And he came over, and him and David were having a lot of meetings. And I'm like, something's going down. Like, something good is happening here. I'm not sure what it is. But eventually I found out that they were going to try to revamp the Looney Tunes. And I just was like, I need to get on this thing. As like, whatever I could do. I can't work at Warner Brothers while Looney Tunes is happening and not be involved somehow. So I just shamelessly was like posting as much sketches as I could and be like, oh, I could draw this, I could do this, I could do whatever, like, just trying to get that team to notice me. And like, once again, like, my entire career is based off of other people, like just other people recommending me, helping me, or fostering me in any way. And David was like, hey, I think you should hire this guy. They had already had their storyboard team set up, so I wasn't really going to be a storyboard artist over there. But Pete knew that he wanted the animation to have a certain level to it, more so than previous projects. He wanted there to be that extra special touch to it, and he gave me a chance.
The previous Looney Tune projects, you're saying in particular, right? Yeah,
we wanted a certain kind of aesthetic to it, and he knew that it was going to require an entire department like keeping an eye on it. So he gave me a chance. I started off, and another thing was all these years of doing X sheets. At least for the early tests, he needed someone to do the X sheets. So David recommended me to Pete. He said, hey, this guy knows how to do sheets, and he's really good at animating. You should, if you need an animation director or a sheet timer, give him a chance. And I owe them everything. I owe Pete and David everything for giving me a chance to do it. It was crazy.
Explain, if you don't mind, what is a supervising animator in a show like this? Because classically, you think of like supervising animators as directing animators. They get all the key scenes, and then they have a team of animators that they're working with, and they dole out work to them, and they give them guidance and feedback. They're essentially the lead animators, typically, is my understanding of it. Is that that different in this case here, or what? Can you talk to that a little bit?
Well, that's the one thing that I was always so nervous about. Was I had worked in animation as an animator at Titmouse for a long time. Then I was kind of transitioning my career into more storyboarding, and now this opportunity to be an animation supervisor, I didn't really know what that meant. And in the beginning, Warner Brothers normally had been shipping their animation and using X sheets and that old process. And now this program, Toon Boom Harmony, is coming into play, and they want to do the show in Harmony. A lot of the studios still work on paper, but they'll clean up their scenes in Harmony. So Harmony was going to be involved. And so I wasn't really sure, like, it's just kind of this new space right now that I'm not really sure how it works. But at least in the beginning, I was involved with the in doing the X sheets and the sheet timing for the episodes. We'd send them out. So I was involved in the pre-production phase of getting those sheets ready. And then when the animation starts coming back, I'll sit with all the showrunners and directors, and we'll see the animation, pick apart the things that we don't like, really just assess where it's at, and we get a couple of rounds of notes that we'll give. So and then sometimes if there's really just something that didn't work out, I'll actually get to do some animation myself, but on the way back end, right before we're done wrapping it. But yeah, it's kind of this new position. I mean, like you said before, animation director or animation supervisor, I'm not really sure exactly what their position would be. What I'm doing now just seems kind of like I'm flying by the seat of my pants. I don't really I think I'm just making it up as I go along. I don't know.
So you're in Warner Brothers, and Disney's got their morgue, right? The space where they can go and look at all the old drawings and stuff like that. And the animators spend all their time there dorking out over. I've heard about this. Something that John Lounsbury or Milt Kahl worked on or something like that, and they get to hold the actual paper that they were drawing on and stuff. Does Warner Brothers have something similar, like old termite terrace, paper or artwork or anything like that?
I'm sure they do have that artwork. I've never actually gone to their archives, but I know they do have archives. I know it's just a lot of films there. I'm sure they have all that artwork saved, but I personally haven't ventured down into their archives. All the board artists and all the artists on the show are such fans of it. I remember one of the funniest storyboard artists, this guy Ryan Katam. He started working on the show, and he brought in a quick times of every single Looney Tunes short that he could have ever collected. He had the entire thing. I don't know how many gigs it was, but we kind of had our own little mini archive right on the server, because he just brought in every quick time he had found over the years, and just everything at our fingertips, which was crazy. Yeah. And it's crazy that an artist just brought it. He's like, oh yeah, I'll bring it in from home.
Nice. So we got to talk about the style and the aesthetic in general. I mean, there's obviously a very conscious decision to really represent the classic Tex Avery, Bob Clampett style of the early to mid 40s. Yeah. How did that decision come into play, and how did you get the backing of Warner Brothers, considering like decades and decades of them never doing that outside of like Space Jam or maybe some commercials here and there? Yeah. How did the creative wind up convincing the executives that this is the direction we need to go, and be really respectful and of the way they did it before, and realize the power of that? Because that's how I saw it. I was like, Jesus, they're really doing what I've always hoped they would do. They're finally doing it. I mean, how did that all come about?
It was probably a little bit before my time, during the nebulous time where I was like, what's going on? Something's happening here, but I don't really know exactly what's up. But I believe it's all due to Pete Browngardt and Alex Kerwan.
Yeah.
Those, and then along with this designer Jim Soper, who I'm sure you're familiar with. He's like the lead designer on the show. His Instagram, if you just look up on Instagram, Jim Soper, it's incredible. This guy.
Okay, how do you spell that, by the way, just in case
Jim,
other people want to
J-I-M,
seek him out?
And Soper, S-O-P-E-R. He's an insane talent, and I think he's in Boston. I think that's where he is. But Pete, I wasn't there for these meetings, but Pete just sold him on this concept, this perspective he had on it, and then he pursued Jim. And Pete tells this story all the time, so I hate to tell this story for Pete, but it's such a great story. He loved Jim's work, and he wanted Jim to be involved. And as the story goes, Pete had a Zoom call, or I guess it wasn't Zoom at that point. Zoom's kind of exploded, but he had a Skype call with Jim and the president. They were trying to coax Jim to do the project. And I don't think it took much coaxing, but the president of the animation studio kind of jumped on the call just to, hey, you got to come do this with us. And apparently, as it goes, Jim just said, I've been waiting for this call my entire life. Like, he's just been a huge fan, and it was just kind of, perfect timing. The perfect showrunner, had the perfect concept, found the perfect designer, and it just all came together. It was just really great. Like, it really is just a special project. I don't know if I'm ever gonna be able to work on something this cool ever again.
Yeah. So, were people? I mean, what was, as you guys are working through the cartoons, were you like, okay, we have some magic going on here. We're really doing this. I mean, what were your feelings as you were going through? Were people? Was it a mixture of being terrified and also being incredibly excited, or was it like, no, we've got this. We're hitting 3-pointers right now. I mean, what was the feeling going on? Because that's a big thing, man. I mean, you guys are doing something special,
Yeah, it was. I remember just there's something about how I can compartmentalize things in my head. Like, I could just work for a while and just focus on work, and then you take a step back and you're like, oh my god, I'm drawing Bugs Bunny. This is crazy. Like, this is previously I was
like drawing Bugs Bunny for Warner Brothers,
yes.
Not like drawing Bugs Bunny in your basement.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, it was super surreal. But there were times where I had to just shut that out and just kind of treat it like any day in, day out job, because if I had thought about that too much, it probably would have freaked me out. But the pressure I kind of feel was definitely on the storytelling and the filmmakers. I kind of was on the back end. One thing that's just so crazy about this show too, I mean, from the art direction to the design and then the storyboards, all these board artists are insane animators in their own right. They're all incredible, and so the boards were so solid that I feel like they probably had more of the pressure on them, and then my pressure was, these boards are incredible. If the animation sucks, everyone's gonna be like, it's his fault. It's that guy. Like, the design could be great, the art direction is beautiful, but if the animation is whack, that's on me. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to do whatever I can to help keep this thing going, because I felt that pressure, and it's like, it can't just be another project at Warner Brothers. It really has to have that extra love. So I hope that came through.
Oh, absolutely, man. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was smiling ear to ear watching it, man. I really was. There are definitely some highlights. For example, the one with the bubble gum.
Oh yeah.
Was with Daffy Duck. The one with the pool, Elmer Fudd, and I think it was
Pool Bunny, yeah.
Yeah, Pool Bunny, where there's all these thumbtacks.
Yep.
What was it? I mean, it's so good, man. But what was the reception? I mean, how did Warner Brothers receive the development of it? Were they getting excited themselves, or?
I think so.
Even before it had launched.
Yeah. I mean, I know the excitement and the love was there. The president of the studio, Sam Register, always was like, I think he said something, I don't want to misquote him, but there was something like, this needs to be treated with velvet gloves. We need to like make sure that this is not just another project. And the excitement and enthusiasm was always there. But yeah, they knew the whole way, and it was just even like what we were dealing with. You know, we started talking a long time ago, and just the waiting for it to come out, and just I remember we had been working on it for like a year and a half, and I'm like, when are people going to see this? Like, I've been working, I have all these shorts that I've worked on, all this animation. I'm like, I want someone to see it. Like, it's just crazy. We were just sitting on all this stuff for so long, but it was crazy. Yeah, it was.
Obviously, you're still working on stuff now. Does that mean that there's a quote unquote season 2 in development? Like, what is the next step for the project?
I mean, I probably can't say,
because that's how they're doing it, right? That is how they're doing it. Like, that was a season 1. I mean, those 10 episodes, like 10 episodes, right?
Yeah, I think so.
8 to 10 episodes.
I don't know what I would be allowed to say, even though I'm kind of nobody on the show, but I don't think it's any secret that there's going to be more batches of shorts. I just don't know when. Nice. You know, I actually was trying to find out when the next batch is coming, but I know they are coming, and they're just going to continue to roll out over time. But
so just switching gears a little bit, man, you're such a beautiful animator. I really, really love your work, man. It's so fantastic.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
You know, just checking out your reels and seeing the stuff that you're working on Instagram that you're posting, like about Shoreside Steven. And what are your goals? I mean, do you want to be, you know, at the table, like just kind of hunkered down? Is that your ultimate goal, is to just be, you know, just a badass animator? Or do you want to continue to do like animation directing or supervising like you're doing here? Or like what would be your ultimate sort of trajectory?
Well, I was just talking to my friend, I was talking to David Gemmel about this, and I don't know what other people's goals are within the industry, whether it's, I want to work on a certain project, or I want to be at a certain studio. Like, full disclosure, I was that Disney kid. I wanted to work at Disney Feature. That's the only thing I wanted to do growing up.
Yep, me too.
But now, you know, being at that position in my career, it's more of, for me, just wanting to be one of the guys, or, you know, one of the artists in the crew. Like, we have a couple of, you know, former Disney Feature guys working on our show. 2 phenomenal animators, Bill Waldman and Chris Wall, worked at, you know, Disney for years, and just getting to interact with them, like, that's what I wanted. Like, you know, regardless of where I am or what I'm working on, like, just getting to work with them and getting exposure with them, because I'm sure you have this feeling too, you know, back in the early 2000s, that was like an impossible dream. Like, you're never going to get to work with these guys because those experiences aren't happening anymore. And, you know, once I got introduced to them and I get to see them working and, you know, ask them questions, or just even getting to any exposure to their work. And that was another thing. Dan Haskett is one of our designers on our show. We are lucky enough to have him when we can. He's a very busy man, but I got to meet him. I'm pretty shy, and I don't know what I would say to him other than just be another fanboy saying, like, I love your work. But, you know, like, but so I never had the guts to, you know, just go over there and bother him. But there was one time he came over to hang out with us and see what we were working on, and he came into my office, and he was just looking around at all the drawings I had laid out everywhere, and he didn't say anything, and he was just, you know, taking it all in, looking around, and I was just freaking out inside. Just you know, this is like a once in a lifetime. He's one of my heroes, and here he is in my office, like, looking at my drawings, probably thinking they're trash. So cool. It was crazy. It was.
I had
a pinch me moment.
one fanboy moment in particular when I when I was 13 years old, I started writing to Disney to try and get some feedback. So I developed a relationship with this guy named Phil Young, who is this animator at Disney, and he was like my mentor, like from across the sea.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
And he would draw on top of mine, and he'd send me long form letters about like what they're doing and what they're working on, and it was awesome, man. And eventually, it's a crazy story, but he wound up like being a professor at SCAD, and I met him and his wife with my wife at the time.
Oh man,
this was like after I had already left. I was so pissed. He got a job there.
Oh,
but anyway, he got me and my brother a chance to go to the Florida studio.
Nice.
Back in the mid '90s. And we got a little tour. So this actually, it was just before I was going into college, and we're walking around, and I see off in the distance, I see Ruben Aquino. You know Ruben Aquino?
That's
right?
crazy.
Yeah, so I see him, right? And just the fanboy in me just couldn't contain myself. I didn't realize. And I was like, oh my God, it's Ruben Aquino. It's Ruben Aquino. And I started like motioning towards him, and he like visibly looked disturbed. He was like, get this guy away from me, It was so hilarious, but
he has
at least
to know
I have
that feeling. We all got that feeling.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was so cool. But anyway, so essentially you love the team player format. You just love the idea of being surrounded by all these great animators and just trying to absorb as much as possible. Is that kind of where you're at?
Yeah. It's crazy. On my Instagram, I have some of my earliest like Bugs drawings, or I think it was just one Bugs drawing, and then I have some early Coyotes that I did, and they are so bad. But I didn't want to delete them because I want to this is what like can happen. You can get better, because like where I started was horrible, and just the company you keep, I guess, just being around these guys, it's just so inspiring.
Yeah.
And I remember. One of the secret weapons of the industry, Bob McKnight, another legend, designer and animator. He's just the nicest guy ever, and he came by my office one time, and I was doing this Porky test animation that I was working on for forever, and he was joking. He was like, "Oh, I want to see that," and he didn't really comment on it. And I was like, Bob, I'd love to know what you think about this. And he goes, No, you don't want me to critique it. And I was like, No, I would love that. That's all I want is, everyone in LA, they could be a little phony sometimes. You want someone to not blow smoke up your butt and tell it how it is. And he goes, okay, fine. And he just went off on it and just tore it apart. And I was like, thank you, this is great. Like someone who's finally not going to just tell me, oh, that's very nice. That's what I want.
That's what you need.
Yeah, that's, I think like we were saying before, animation definitely, traditional animation definitely is making a comeback. While we were making Looney Tunes, Klaus came out, and that was just like mind blowing.
So you're reading my mind right now.
Yeah, and it's just there's definitely a future for this. I think people are, a good story is a good story. It doesn't matter what medium it's in. And I think people are craving something different. And Klaus was that. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful story, and animation was incredible. Like all of those guys, I would see their demo reels online, and it was just so inspiring. Like, oh my God, these guys are insane.
Unbelievable.
They make me feel like a fraud every day, but it's another one of those like, it boosts you up again. Like, oh, I got to get
inspiring.
better.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's just like there's one animator there who I don't know personally, but I follow his work. Matt Willemez, I think is how you pronounce his name. He's just incredible, and I know that I don't know too much about what's going on with Space Jam 2, but I think it is like common knowledge that he is working on it.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you, I know we're getting close to the top of the hour here, so I'll be respectful of your time, but...
oh, dude, I can go forever. I can talk about this forever.
Yeah, me too, man. That's what I got to be. That's why I got to temper myself a little bit.
For sure.
I did want to ask you about Space Jam. I mean, is that like are these shorts a testing ground in some ways for you guys on the team to be a part of that, or do they pull in, is Space Jam, first of all, I saw a quick little snippet of a Space Jam, like LeBron, I think, is in it, right?
I believe so, yeah.
The new Space Jam.
Yeah, the new one. Yeah, I saw that he just released. I
guess that's 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that going to be hand-drawn, do you know?
I honestly, what I could say about it is that we are completely separate from that. I honestly think it's not even... We are Warner Brothers Animation, which is traditionally like television stuff. And I think it's through WAG, which is Warner Brothers Animation Group, I think it is. But it's more of the feature department. So we're kind of separated from them. We don't really know what's going on over there. I know that they're working, but I think it's we're two totally different departments, and I think we're kind of our own little thing, which was developed separately, I guess. So we're kind of I mean, I hope that I hope the movie's successful, just because it'll mean people are watching traditional animation, and but if this is kind of like a palate warmer for them, like all the better, or if people see the movie and then they want more cartoons, we'll be waiting for them. We'll have plenty more. So
yeah, no doubt. My understanding is that the new Looney Tunes did quite well, right? Like in terms of viewership, I believe
so. I mean, what they told us is that we were one of the, in terms of original stuff on HBO Max, we were one of the highest viewed. So I think it did pretty well.
Yeah. So on that note, when you see Klaus, are you inclined to do feature animation like that too? Is that something that you're interested in?
Yeah. I'm with you, man. Feature animation is the dream. To be a part of a crew like that, it would be the dream. I could die a happy man if I got to do something like that, but maybe we'll see one day. I feel like if I just keep working hard, maybe, who knows? The happiest thing about it for me is that I feel like that's maybe even a possibility now. Whereas, in the early 2000s, it was just kind of like, well, I better get a new dream because that one doesn't look like it's happening anymore. But just the fact that, 2D, it's like this engine. It's like, come on, let's just get this thing going. And Klaus is this huge firing of the engines. It's like, come on, people want to see it. People love it. There's something so warm about hand-drawn animation, and I really hope maybe Klaus inspired Space Jam, and Space Jam will inspire something else, and maybe one day Disney will be like, what, we should jump in this. Who knows? But I think 2D animation feature-wise is definitely in a better place now than it's ever been. Hopefully, hopefully it'll come back.
Absolutely, yeah. Some couple rapid fire questions, man. Do you have a favorite animated character, or any particular reason why?
My favorite Disney short is the Ichabod Crane, Adventures of Ichabod Crane short. There's something about the East Coast and Sleepy Hollow, and just that short just makes me feel like at home, and just takes me back to being a kid. That whole short is just incredible.
Watching that during Halloween, I remember specifically.
And it's my grandmother loved Bing Crosby, so maybe I didn't know who he was when I was a child, but that voice is just so warm to me. It's just kind of takes me to a different place when I hear that short. That's definitely my 100%.
Favorite. Not to slight Mr. Toad though, because that is a fantastic story as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I was just that little horror kid that was just like, all right, get to the scarier one.
Nice. And how about favorite animator? When you were growing up, or even now, from the past.
I guess growing up, watching all the behind the scenes footage of Andres Deja and seeing Glenn Keane being like, oh my god, those are the guys that I wanna be like. now I feel like I'm totally just in love with Preston Blair and
yeah, you mean like all of the MGM stuff?
Yeah, like a Preston Blair, Art Babbitt, like it's just kind of like my new place I want to be, because the draftsmanship is just, that's what I always have to work on. I always have to push myself to, work out my proportions and my volumes, and just that stuff is just so inspiring to, that's the real meat that I want to try to keep chasing. So they're kind of like I'm their fanboy now.
And how about like a favorite animator now that you're just like, oh my God, she or he is, somebody that is just like the Michael Jordan of animation? Anybody that we should look out for?
Well, honestly, one guy I keep coming back to, because I would imagine I've followed some of his interviews. The same animator, this guy, Matt Willemez. He's a super inspiring person to me personally. Like, if there's a couple of interviews that he has out there, and it's such a similar story. We're all those like, similar age brackets where we kind of grew up in the same way, and becoming an animator was kind of a distant dream. And his career's on fire, and his artwork is unbelievable. Like, his animation is so on point, and his career path and the things that he's done with his career are super inspiring to me. So somebody like Matt Willemez for sure.
Nice. I'll have to check it out. I probably have seen him on Instagram. I went through a series of like pencil test review, like post the movie coming out. All the animators are like, here's what I worked on. Here's what I worked on. Everyone's it's so brilliant.
It's crazy. It makes me want to go hide, because it's like, oh my God, I'm a fraud. Like, these guys are superstars.
Whatever.
Yeah. But we're going to have to get you into animation, man. We got to start this up.
Eventually, man. Give me a little bit of time. But anyway, listen, man. I'm gonna let you go. I really appreciate you finally making some time for us, man. It's been a pleasure getting to catch up with you and getting to know you a little bit. Do you have any? You know what? Where can people find you? Maybe you should give a shout out to like some of the spots where people can find you, and maybe what projects are you working on right now if it's not Looney Tunes?
Well, fortunately and unfortunately, Looney Tunes takes up all my time. So I personal projects have kind of taken a back seat right now. But I'm just currently on Looney Tunes cartoons. My artwork, I guess, is mainly on my Twitter and my Instagram. I feel like those are the main places I posted. I remember the days of Blogspots, but I haven't posted on Blogspot in probably like a good decade now. But if you search Joey Caps Animation, my Twitter and Instagram should pop up, hopefully. That's where most of my stuff is.
Awesome. All right, Joey. Listen, man, again, pleasure, and let's keep in touch, and let's do a part 2 sometime in the future, man, okay?
Oh, dude, I love it. That'd be great.
Awesome. All right, well, be safe, and we'll chat soon, all right?
Same to you, man. Thanks again. This is great.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the Pencil Pushers Podcast. Follow us on Instagram at the Pencil Pushers Podcast for visual representation of our guest artwork, topics discussed, and anything else that contributes to the show. So be sure to subscribe. Tell a friend. Tell lots and lots of friends. Become a Leadhead. And we're out.